And welcome to another Rich Alvarez live stream. I'm, of course, your host, Rich Alvarez. It's been a couple of weeks since we had a live stream, so I thought I'd better do one before January is over. This being, of course, the final day of January 2022. It's still getting used to saying 2022. It's always hard the first couple of months, and I don't know why. I'm just anyways, welcome. Today it's another just chatting with Rich Alvarez. We're going to talk about anything you want. Bring up subjects in the chat. I've got a couple of topics I'm going to talk about. Feel free to super chat to change the subject, and we'll just kind of go from there. Hello, I see a lot of familiar faces. Dante, Son Goku, Stream Elements, Orlando, Ikram the Cyborg. Welcome to Just Chatting with Rich. Okay. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is Blade in the MCU, and we're not going to talk about this one for long, but let's talk about it for just a little bit. Yeah. So, thank you, JM Epic. Hi, haven't caught a stream in a few years. It's great to see you again. Great to see you here. David Benion. Hi, bro. Nacho Taco is here, and of course, Silver Shadow, which is Chris. So Blade is actually already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Oh yes, thank you, Chris. Make sure to get those likes up, like this video, because that's the way YouTube likes it. Give this video a thumbs up, aka a like. Okay, Blade is already in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I know many of you might have skipped the Eternals because you saw that it was the worst reviewed movie on Rotten Tomatoes out of all of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I still stand by that the movie is okay. It's not great. It's not a great movie, but it is a good movie, I think. I certainly don't think it's as bad as Thor the Dark World, Iron Man 2, or the Ed Norton led Incredible Hulk. I think it is better than those movies, and therefore, I don't think it is the worst MCU movie. I think it's an okay movie. It's entertaining. It doesn't have the buddy feels of, say, like a Thor Ragnarok or a Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not a funny movie. It does take itself perhaps a bit too seriously, and at times can drag, maybe. But I still feel like it's entertaining. And if they had maybe cut 20, 30 minutes out of the movie, it could have been a lot better. Also, plotting is a problem. Well, I'm not here to nitpick about the Eternals. I'm here to tell you that Blade is officially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because, yes, that voice, if you're on top of these things, that voice at the end, in the end credit scene, spoilers for the Eternals, by the way, but that voice in the end credit scene, the person who's talking to Kit Harington's Black Knight character, that is Mahershala Ali, who is our new Blade. Therefore, Blade has already made his way into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And yes, if you're not a huge Marvel fan, you may not have even known that Blade, the vampire hunter, played by Wesley Snipes in the 90s, that was a Marvel character that's been around for a long time. He made his introduction in Tomb of Dracula, issue 14, a Marvel comic from the 70s. That was his first appearance in the comics. He is a very skilled vampire hunter, and he's become a very important part of the Marvel universe. And now he'll be making his way into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as they kind of introduce the more supernatural elements. We're, of course, getting Moon Knight, played by Oscar Isaac, on Disney Plus. And in the trailer for Moon Knight, he's beating up on Werewolf by Night, which is another supernatural character in the Marvel Universe. So we're going to be getting all kinds of cool stuff. And of course, the introduction of Blade means vampires in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well. I just wanted you to be aware that that Blade is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And again, this is just chatting with Rich, and we are just talking about whatever. My thoughts on Marvel Zombies. I mean, I really like the comic Marvel Zombies. The What If episode was pretty cool too. I mean, that's all I really have to say about it. I don't think that that's going to be a canon thing anytime soon, but it is part of the wider multiverse. Okay, now let's get to the well, I wouldn't say the meat and potatoes of this because, again, we are just kind of talking about whatever here. But another big thing I want to talk about, as suggested by my good friend Chris Muller, is that we're going to be talking a little bit about Robocop and a potential sequel slash remake slash whatever slash sequel. Anyways, many of you may not be familiar, or maybe you are, but you've never seen it. You might not be familiar with the 1987 classic Robocop. That 2014 remake, get that out of here. I mean, the 2014 remake of RoboCop is an okay movie in its own right. It's just nothing like RoboCop, and it doesn't really have the same like messaging or feel to it at all. Like, let me tell you a little bit about RoboCop. And this is a movie I've enjoyed since I was basically a little kid. But what got me watching it again recently was the Netflix show, The Movies That Made Us, which is a docu-series. So, like, if you like the making of stuff, you know, like as a kid, I really liked the making of Jurassic Park. But if you're not interested in watching a 2-hour documentary on how like a movie is made, but you are interested in how a movie is made, you might be interested in the Netflix show, The Movies That Made Us, because each episode is about 40 minutes long, and they do their best to cram as much into those episodes as possible. But anyways, the third season recently came out, and one of the episodes is on RoboCop, the original 1987 film, and they talk about how it's made and how Peter Weller, who plays RoboCop, Alex Murphy, like, you know, how he prepared for his pantomiming of RoboCop, you know, you're under arrest, creep, and all that stuff, you know. And yeah, it was really cool, and like it reminded me how much I loved RoboCop, and of course I immediately went and rewatched the original RoboCop, and it is still a fantastic movie. If you're familiar with the original Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger or the first Starship Troopers movies, both of those movies were also directed by Paul Verhoeven, who directed RoboCop, and it is very much in a similar tone to that. RoboCop is at its heart a drama about a man, a police officer who is gunned down and then is resurrected as a machine, and then throughout the movie has to rediscover his humanity. It is also part Western because it is a revenge story. It is basically a revenge Western set in the future in Detroit that is worse than the Detroit we have now. And then on top of that, it is also a satire on corporations and consumerism, you know, very similar to Total Recall and especially Starship Troopers, which are both satires of commercialism and propaganda. So there's a lot of layers to RoboCop. It's a lot smarter than it is at first glance. You might think that a movie called Robocop is very silly, but at the heart of Robocop, it's actually a very smart tale. And it is an incredible movie. So if you've never seen 1987's Robocop, then go ahead and give it a watch. You might feel that some of the special effects are dated, but some of that's kind of on purpose. Not that they, like, you know, stop motion, of course, was basically your only way to do effects for giant things coming at you in the 80s. I mean, the original Terminator also used stop motion for the T-800 at the end. They used stop motion for the big robot that Murphy has to fight at the end. RoboCop is Murphy, by the way. Yeah, you know, it might look dated, but if you appreciate older special effects, then it doesn't matter. And also, it kind of, to me, the stop motion really just adds to the satire of the movie. RoboCop isn't supposed to be 100% serious. It is supposed to be a satire. It's supposed to be kind of funny, but the heart of the movie is very serious. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I really recommend it if you can just stand the very violent death of Alex Murphy. Because near the beginning of the movie, your protagonist, Alex Murphy, you know, beloved cop, gets murdered, and then he's resurrected as RoboCop. So there's almost a little bit of like a Messiah message in there. Maybe some people have akin it to that as well, because he's brought back to life. I don't know about that so much, but it's definitely a great movie. Definitely a great story. A terrific revenge Western set in future Detroit. If you don't believe me, just YouTube RoboCop theme song, and you're going to find that it is very much a Western theme, but with like some electronic futuristic sounds in it. Brilliant soundtrack by the great Basil, who also did the soundtrack for like Conan the Barbarian, you know. And I think Chariots of Fire. I mean, I think Chris will correct me on that. Did Basil do Chariots of Fire? I think Basil did Chariots of Fire. I hope Chris is still here because he can Google that and correct me if I'm wrong. But I think Basil also did Chariots of Fire. But he definitely did Conan, and he definitely did RoboCop. What a great soundtrack. Anyways, thank you very much, Dante Tamaki, Brandon Blair, Carrie Marshall. Chris says, I don't know. You have Google at your fingertips, Chris. I expect better. Xanderbrow has super chatted $5. Thank you so much, Xander Rao, for your super chat. Xander Rao says, can't wait for Robocop to investigate Detroit Become Human. Well, that's not going to happen. Those are two completely separate universes. But I will say, another reason why I'm bringing up Robocop of all things today is because, the 2014 reboot, of course, didn't do well enough to have a sequel. And in a lot of ways, that's good because, again, the remake, it's not a bad film. It's just not Robocop. The original screenwriter of Robocop is writing a true sequel that he hopes to have Peter Weller, the original Alex Murphy, the original Robocop, in the role. And it would take place, of course, 30 years after the original. And Peter Weller himself has said that he is down to reprise the role if the project gets off of its feet. Now, originally, Neil Blomkamp of District 9 fame was supposed to direct, but just like with the Halo project he was attached to, he decided, well, they're taking too long. I'm going to work on something else. And then by the time they were ready to do Robocop, he was like, well, sorry, I've already started pre-production on this other thing. And that's why, Neil Blomkamp, you've got to have a little bit more patience, buddy, because you've missed out on Halo. Now you missed out on Robocop. You got to give the big studios like a couple of months. I know that that's hard to judge, but you've got to give it some time. If you want these bigger projects, and maybe you don't, but if you want these bigger projects, you have to kind of sit on them for a minute. Sorry, Neil Blomkamp, who's definitely not watching this video, but you've got to sit on those just a little bit. Chris says Chariots of Fire, directed by Hugh Hudson. I wasn't talking about the director, Chris. I'm talking about the music. Was the music done by Basil? Was the music? Okay, well, all right. Never mind about that. I think Chris misunderstood my question, and that's fine. That's fine, Chris. You go ahead and not understand what I'm telling you. Sorry. Anyways, yeah. Music by Vangelis, of course. Well, this music by Vangelis was very similar to Basil's music, but of course, Vangelis did Chariots of Fire, and I believe Vangelis also did Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. So sometimes I mix Basil up with Vangelis because they were both in the 80s and they both made very iconic soundtracks. My apologies to Vangelis, who's also definitely not watching this video. Yeah, so Robocop, possible sequel. They were gonna, of course, Neil Blomkamp, he's out. And then they hired another director, but then of course COVID happened and then production got delayed just like everything else in the world. Yeah, so there's that. Okay. Those were the only two topics I had on my mind at the moment. So now we will open it up to discussion, and I'm going to start with Chris. Chris, what is on your mind? What should we talk about? And I'm sorry again, with apologies to Vangelis. Yes, Chris, that's what I'm starting to take questions, and my first question I wanted to be from you. So, yeah. Unlike Neil Blomkamp, I'm going to wait. Brendan says, keep talking, Robocop. I got nothing to say about Robocop. I mean, I could just talk about how awesome it is, but you should all watch 1987's Robocop. It's really good. Okay, here we go, Chris. Movie you're most excited about this year, and you know the answer to this question, but it is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, of course, if you saw Spider-Man No Way Home, then you already know that that's pretty much the greatest film of all time, assuming you're a Spider-Man fan, which of course I am, but I'm also a fan of this guy, Doctor Strange, hence him being on my wall. So, anyways, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is, I mean, what can I say? I really loved Spider-Man. The Loki show was really great. WandaVision's really great. This movie is looking like, of course, that it's attempting to kind of bring all that together and really deep dive into the multiverse And, I know people are like, oh, but, they could introduce the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and everything. And yeah, that would be cool too. But just like when people were like, oh, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home. I mean, of course, now we know they are. But even before I knew for sure, and we didn't know for sure until the movie actually came out, I was still excited for Spider-Man No Way Home, just on the idea that they were bringing in villains from other movies, other universes, and we were finally going to open up the Marvel Universe. I feel the same way about Multiverse of Madness. It could very well introduce the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. And by the way, we know for a fact that the director of Spider-Man No Way Home is going to be directing a Fantastic Four movie for the MCU. So the Fantastic Four are confirmed to be in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at some point. However, the rumor is that they will be introduced first before their solo movie in Multiverse of Madness. So we'll see about that. And then also, the bigger rumor is that we're going to see the X-Men in Multiverse of Madness. Bringing the X-Men in to Multiverse of Madness would allow the X-Men to kind of sit in their own universe and then be brought into the MCU, which would make sense because the mutants are in the Marvel universe. The mutants are the other. They're treated bad by everybody. Everybody hates mutants, and mutants' rights are like a big deal in the comics. And if you've ever watched like the '90s mutant show, you or the '90s X-Men show, then you get that. They had a little bit of that in the X-Men movies. People treat X-Men like crap, and that's an important facet. However, it would be hard to introduce the X-Men in the MCU now when there has been no mention of mutants or mutant hate in the MCU so far. So it would make sense that the X-Men already exist in their own universe, and then they'll be brought into the MCU. So it would be a smart way to introduce them in Multiverse of Madness if that's what they were going to do. However, I honestly believe that that's not what's going to happen. I believe that the X-Men will eventually just get their own movie. And it's been rumored that it's not even going to be called the X-Men. It's going to be called like Mutants. And it's just going to be a movie that's just going to introduce the idea of mutants. And it'll probably introduce Charles Xavier and Eric Lensher, aka Magneto, and kind of start the ball rolling on what mutants are and how they came to be, and kind of start mutants fresh, like they're a new thing in this universe. And then we'll get a second movie, maybe called The X-Men, that introduces the original team. And by the way, if you're not a fan of comics, I will tell you the original X-Men, besides Charles Xavier and their enemy Magneto, the original X-Men are Cyclops, Jean Grey, aka Marvel Girl, Iceman, aka Billy, Beast before he turned blue, and Angel. Those are the only X-Men, and those were the only X-Men for like 15 years. Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus, they all were introduced in Giant Size X-Men #1 in 1975, a good 14, 15 years after the X-Men's debut. And so that's why we probably won't see characters like Storm and Nightcrawler and Wolverine until a third X-Men movie. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Wolverine's so cool. But again, the Marvel Universe has been pretty good about doing things mostly right. So, I mean, if they're smart, they won't introduce Wolverine because they made Wolverine way too big of a deal in, like, basically all of the Fox X-Men movies are just Wolverine solo movies, like X-Men 1, X-Men 2. I love those movies. I love X-Men 1 and X-Men 2, but they're basically Wolverine movies. Wolverine isn't even supposed to be there yet, And also, they really did a dirty to my favorite. My favorite X-Men isn't Wolverine. My favorite X-Men is Rogue. And I like Anna Paquin as the character in the first movie, but then they continue to just make her not Rogue. And then in X-Men 3, she decides to get rid of her powers. What? Of course, if you know the comics, Rogue, has her basic mutant abilities that she can take the powers from other mutants temporarily. But the reason why in the comics she has super strength and can fly is because she took the powers from Miss Marvel, the original Miss Marvel, not the new Miss Marvel, the original Miss Marvel, who is Carol Danvers, who is today's Captain Marvel. It's really confusing. But Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, used to be Miss Marvel in the comics. They kind of skipped that part in the movie where she's Miss Marvel. Rogue steals her powers from Ms. Marvel. And unlike mutants, where she gets the powers temporarily, she permanently steals Ms. Marvel's powers and gets flight and super strength. And Carol Danvers goes into a coma for a long time, and there's a whole story there, and eventually Carol Danvers gets new powers and becomes Captain Marvel. But Rogue gets her powers. And so I understand that it would be hard in the next movie to introduce Captain Marvel or Ms. Marvel and have Rogue get her powers that way. But they should have done something to get Rogue her powers, because Rogue should have been the most powerful X-Men on that team. It literally, like, if you've ever read the comics, you probably haven't, or if if you have Disney Plus, you can watch the 90s X-Men show. I recommend you watch it, because when the X-Men really need something done, when they need a wall broken or they need to get into something, they ask Rogue to do it. She's the most powerful X-Men on the team. And you could argue, okay, well, Storm's an Omega level mutant. Jean Grey is an Omega level mutant when she's the Phoenix. But really, Rogue is probably the most useful member of the team. I don't know. Anyways, I was just sad that they didn't do Rogue a justice. Anyways, we got a super chat from Zaunerbrow. Book of Boba thoughts. I'm so glad you asked, because that is my next topic. And it's only my next topic because you super chatted. But I mean, I was probably going to talk about it anyway. As you know, I'm a big fan of Star Wars as well, hence the child. I looking at the camera disorients me to reality here. But anyways, you can see I have the child. I was a big fan of The Mandalorian. And I'm really enjoying the Book of Boba Fett. I know that some people have been down on it, like, oh, it's not going anywhere, or it's not as good as The Mandalorian. I think that The Mandalorian is awesome, but I think it got people used to like that really fast pace. And the Book of Boba Fett, some people got to understand, it's a different show. And its tone is, it's very similar in ways to tone to The Mandalorian. Of course, it's another Filoni and Favreau production. So, and it's made in the same place. But what separates us is, they had to really sell us on Din Djarin, aka the Mandalorian, in The Mandalorian. And Boba Fett is a character that we all know. So the show has to spend a lot of time explaining. It goes back and forth. It has to explain how Boba survived the Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi, his rescue, and kind of integration into like the Tuskens on Tatooine. And then it also jumps after Mandalorian season 2, where he's trying to become basically the new Jabba the Hutt on Tatooine and control the area as the new crime lord, but while actually not doing any actual crime, so it would seem. But anyways, I'm enjoying the show, and I strongly feel like it will pick up the pace in these last few episodes and get really good. Some people are extremely divided on episode 5, which really didn't have any Boba Fett in it at all. I'm like, oh, where's you got any Boba Fett in your Boba Fett show? That's a Jeff Goldblum reference from Jurassic Park. There was no Boba Fett in episode 5. Instead, episode 5 really seemed to be kind of like a backdoor first episode of season 3 of The Mandalorian. It really focused on Din Djarin and him having responsibility of the Darksaber, trying to kind of get in with his old pals from the Watch. And then, of course, eventually deciding that he needs to go find Baby Yoda, a.k.a. the child, a.k.a. Grogu. And I think that he will use that opportunity also to train with Luke Skywalker, so that way he can have a better hold of the Darksaber. But I don't think we're going to see any of that in Boba Fett. People are like, oh, I can't wait for the next episode where Din Djarin goes and we see Baby Yoda and Luke. Personally, I don't think that's going to be in the next episode. I think that they've teased that, and we're going to see that at the beginning of season 3 of Mandalorian. And these last few episodes, and they really should, focus on Boba Fett. Yeah. Which actors would you like to play as the X-Men or Fantastic Four? That's a very good question, because I've seen a lot of fan cast videos, and I've seen some where they're just like, it should be Daniel Radcliffe as Wolverine. And I've also seen some really pretentious ones where they're like, no, you've probably seen other fan cast videos where they're like, oh, Daniel Radcliffe is Wolverine. And then they pick some like really like art housey indie actors to play the characters. I dislike fan casting for one reason, because the problem is you never know like when the movie is actually going to come out. So you could cast someone who would be perfect for a role right now, but then like the movie won't be made for 5 years, and then they're like too old or they look different or something, and then it doesn't work out. Also, they would never listen to me anyway. But I tell you what, if you want me to do a fan cast of stuff, if you would like to see a fan cast video of either the Fantastic Four or the X-Men, I feel like those should be separate videos. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to do separate videos for fan casting of the Fantastic Four, X-Men, Nova, the Illuminati, whatever other Marvel characters you would like me to fan cast. I'm kind of down for that. I'm down for that. I could also do Star Wars fan casting. Like, for example, if we were ever going to get Dash Rendar in a Star Wars movie, like who could play Dash Rendar? I guess I'm down for that too. You know, it's funny. I started this conversation by saying I hated fan casting, and now I'm talking about doing a bunch of fan casting videos. So I don't know. You'll really have to let me know if you want to see that, because I won't do it unless you want it. But yeah. Also, the Halo show. I feel like nobody's really talking about it. Paramount Plus, which is home of all things Star Trek now, of course, they in March, I think it's March, we are getting the Halo show. We're finally getting a live action Halo show on Paramount Plus. And you know, obviously that's already been filmed. It's about to come out. I mean, I'm excited for it. I hope they do it right. Have some flashbacks of how John, aka Master Chief, got in his situation and his whole backstory. It would be nice if it really focused on Master Chief. I know that there's been like things in the past when they were like doing the Halo movie, we're like, well, we're going to focus on the other characters because they're more human, and Master Chief will just kind of be there as like the side character. I hate that idea. I really think Master Chief really needs to be the lead. So I'll be really disappointed really quickly if Master Chief isn't like front and center of the show. We already saw in The Mandalorian how a person that wears a giant helmet for an entire show can work. Can we just do that with Halo, please? So we're going to find out in that first episode if it sucks or not. Jen Taylor, of course, is coming back as Cortana, reprising her role from the Halo game series and from like Microsoft devices. So yeah, that's going to be good. It's going to be good. Here's Chris. He says, here's a fun question. Getting things back to video games. Did we ever talk about video games in this entire video? What's a Mario game you'd like to see Nintendo make? Could be anything, a sequel, remake, or a totally new idea. Well, as if you couldn't already tell from my past series, The Plumber Knight Returns, I would really like to see, I know they don't have to do this permanently, but I would really like to see a Mario game made for the older fans. You know, I really like things that grow up with its audience. I think that that's something that I desire, and some things do that, some things don't. Nintendo has decided that Mario games are forever a game for children, and that's fine, you know. And I still enjoy the Mario games, but I think it would be neat if they made a, you know, it doesn't have to be M-rated. It can be a T-rated Mario game. It would be nice if they made like a T-rated Mario game that's a bit darker. And I don't know. It's like I have my own. I mean, if you've seen Plumber Knight, I mean, it doesn't have to be that wildly different from the Mario formula, but just make a Mario game that's at least like made for teenagers. And again, you don't have to only make, like, you could still make your regular platform Mario games. You can still do that for forever because those just print money. But please try it once. Just try it once. Make a more mature Mario game. See what happens. I can't help but feel like it would sell really well. That is just my opinion. And I could be wrong. People could like revolt and be like, oh, this isn't Mario. Nah. You know, whatever. People want to be lame. let's see. Some good questions. Some good questions, Chris. Yeah, coming back to video games. I don't really know what I'm looking forward to. I think a lot of games got delayed, of course, because of the COVID. But I would really like to see. I would really like to see, like, of course, I want to see Breath of the Wild too, but I would really like to see more games like Skyrim and, of course, Breath of the Wild. That was my point. If they could just release Elder Scrolls 6 sometime before I die, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, I don't know. The only game I've played this year so far is Minecraft, a game that I've already spent thousands of hours on. Yeah. Anyways. Yep. Anyways, I don't know. That might be it. I don't know. Do you have another question, Chris? Anybody got anything else? Make a Shadow YT says, how's the movie script going? It's coming along. As you guys know, in many streams past, I have talked about my movie script that I'm working on. It's going kind of slow. My goal was to finish it before the end of January. And it doesn't look like I'm going to make that goal, but I'm still working on it. I'm going to be working on it today after I'm done with this, and we'll see that. But I mean, that is something I'm working on, and that's going to be a whole thing. But yeah, when that script is done, I mean, it's going to be simple as just talking with Chris about whether we're going to try to like Kickstarter it or not, or what funding can look like. And yeah, I mean, again, in case I haven't mentioned it before, without giving away too many spoilers, it's basically the basic premise of the movie is a man in his 30s, and this is going to sound a little redundant, but it's a man in his 30s that kind of reconnects with some old friends, and they decide to have like a college style party, and things go awry and humor ensues. I'm trying to bring back kind of the feeling of like those early 2000s college movies, but at the same time, give it a better message, like, reconnecting with old friends and what that really means. And like, can you be friends with someone that you haven't really been friends with in a long time? There's a lot of interesting stuff there. I mean, I don't know, but by the end of my writing process, the messages of the movie could be completely different. I have no idea, but I am trying to write a really funny comedy that is basically the whole movie. Almost the entire movie takes place at a single party. So it's, bringing back vibes of like, oh God, what's that Seth Green movie? Like, my sister would know the name of the movie, but it's that. And then the Will Ferrell movie. I can't remember the names of movies right now, but there's the Will Ferrell movie with Luke Wilson as well, where they go to a college party. Just late 90s, early 2000s kind of like party movies, but like with today, like, I shouldn't say it's not today's humor, it's my humor. But yeah. Anyways, we'll figure it out. I think that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching my live stream. You guys are great. Thank you for all the questions. Hopefully we can do this again sometime soon, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.